Daisy, go down.
All right, let's get this road on the show. Cheers.
Follow your Skittles.
What are you guys drinking? What is that?
We've been drinking a LaCroix at the beginning of every single one. I don't know why,
Okay.
but it's the move.
Oh, okay. What?
All right, why don't you kick us off?
What up, everybody? Episode 4?
Episode 4.
Episode 4. All right, here we go. Bad Company Podcast. Today we got our first guest that we'll introduce in just a minute. Have you been, dude?
I'm good. Why don't you introduce the guest too, so we can talk to him as well? Because he's right there.
All right, I don't know. We didn't talk about this beforehand. How we're gonna do this?
All right, no. Let me. All right. What's up, guys? It's episode 4 of the Bad Company Podcast. You can tell, as I've said at the beginning of every single one, I'm still stuck with Levi. We're struggling already. Today is our first guest. His name is David Lee. David was someone I met recently at one of our races, and he is a lifelong friend of Levi. So, Levi, why don't you introduce David?
All right. You kind of just did. But yeah, we got David Lee. I've known David since like middle school. We became close friends after high school, and we got him here on the podcast. David, what's happening?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Pretty good, man.
Doing good. How's the day been?
It's been good. Honestly, didn't really do jack shit besides homework, and now hopping on the pod with you.
All right, Andrew, how about you?
Pretty good, man. Had a few clients today training, and then came home, worked on my website. It's a pretty casual Friday, and looking forward to getting this done and then cooking up some food.
All right. Nice.
I was gonna say, everyone who's listening with us, you just got to bear with us as we get through all the hiccups. David understands because he's close to us and doesn't think. Well, he probably does. Hopefully, he doesn't think we're complete idiots. But there's a reason we chose David to be on our first podcast. Why don't you talk about why we chose David to be on the podcast?
All right, geez, we'll just jump right into it. Try to get a little small talk going. All right, David. So, like I said, we've been friends we've known each other for how long now? Since like 7th grade, 8th grade?
Yeah, you were in 7th grade. I was 8th grade, so 2007. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. And then we became like real actual friends probably a couple years after high school or longer than that.
Yeah, probably maybe once we started like running and got in touch like that. So 2019.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I grew up in Orange County, and me and David, I started, the passion for running kind of started there, and me and David were like straight up running partners, training partners. We've ran multiple races together. I think, and then just recently we did Moab together, the three of us. David is you're gonna be right. We were just talking. You're gonna do a segment with me of my relay coming up in the spring, so that's gonna be awesome. David, why don't you talk a little bit about because obviously you're a super talented runner. You do other things too, jiu-jitsu. You've always been a really fit dude ever since middle school. Well, I'm gonna give you the floor a little bit. Why don't you talk about like how did that happen? Because like you're a specimen, you always have been. How did you kind of develop that like mindset, or like what shaped you to being like such a physically fit dude right off the bat, like since middle school?
Well, it's like I mean, I don't want to make the mood like darker, but like my earliest memory,
share as little or as much as whatever you want. Or
feel free to be as transparent as you'd like.
Yeah, so for me, my fitness journey started when I was 6, and I know that sounds fucking ridiculous, but my earliest memory is me getting the shit kicked out of me by my dad. So even as early as 6 years old, like I started doing like just push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups every day. Because even back then, I understood that like, hey, I got to get bigger and stronger. So one day that like this isn't going to happen anymore. So like I would watch, TV, you would see like Indiana Jones or like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, whoever it was, they were always in shape, always strong, looking good, like, male role models in that sense. So I would just kind of copy what they did on TV and I would do it every day. Now, back then, I didn't know about like breaking up workouts or rest days or what have you. I didn't even really run back then, but all I really knew were like push ups, sit ups, pull ups. So I would do like 200 push ups, 200 sit ups, 200 pull ups per day. And like it would just be like watching cartoons or whatever it is and do sets of 10. And throughout the day, it's really not that much when you break it up over, during the time you're awake. So it really started out as like I guess, necessity, like survival, and understanding that this is the path for me to be able to change my future.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
I ask you, and by the way, if we ask any questions that you don't, want to fully answer, feel free to not answer them.
Oh no, dude, like I'm pretty comfortable like with anything and everything that I've been through in my life. Like I've done like years of therapy. I've done it and dealt with things. So I'm very comfortable sharing things even with strangers. Like I really don't mind just being an open book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still stands, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that made you? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one older brother that I don't talk to.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you feel like a young age that made you more of like a protective person of the people like you love and the people that
For
are around you?
sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, I told you it started out with like being able to protect myself. But as I grew older, I realized it's not just about protecting myself, but protecting others around me. And, that comes in like a physical sense that like, hey, I got to get bigger and stronger so I can protect myself. Oh, okay. I can also like physically protect others. And then as I grew older, I realized protection isn't just about physical abilities. It's also about like speaking up for others. It's also about like, hey, like, you know, when people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing or they're picking on someone, like you're the one who stood up and be like, hey, like, knock that shit off. Like I ain't gonna let you do that. So definitely I have a sense of I I don't think I could live with myself if I let some shit go down around me and I had the power to do something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right on. Thanks for sharing that. And so did that kind of, so obviously like you just explained that's kind of like how it started.
Yeah.
When did fitness or like I don't know if you want to call it fitness or if you want to call it like training, um at what point did that change into like a passion for you?
Um
Or is it still the same kind of like mindset that like that kind of is the reason for your drive?
Well, it like that. It's still some like that stuff is still a reason for like my drive, but now there's additional reasons that added over the years. Like it started as like, okay, I need to be able to protect myself. I need to be bigger and stronger, and it was an outlet. Like anytime I was angry, anytime I was scared, like anytime I didn't know what to do with myself, I would work out. So it was like my go-to thing. It became like my comfort zone. And as I grew older, I got into sports and stuff. I'm like, okay, let me see like what I'm capable of. Let me see like what I can push my body to do. So there is like a challenging myself aspect. There is a let me see how far I can take this. There's also like a chip on my shoulder, like I need to prove something to myself. Like I'm not worthless. Like I'm not, a piece of shit or I'm not a failure or whatever that is. I've had that drive in me, you know, that started a long time ago as well.
Okay.
So there's multiple factors. Now I feel like some of that still resides within me, but I really want to see like how far I can take things. Like, you said that I was always like a physical specimen of some sort. And maybe I agreed to a certain extent, but I don't necessarily think that I'm like built particularly for certain things, like running. Like you and me, when we go like start on the start line on races, we look to our left and right, and what do they look like? They normally don't look like us. They're generally skinnier, taller, have like that runner type of bod.
No
Um,
Achilles. Yeah, I get you.
yeah, so like me, like I'm short, I'm like a little stockier, like I got shorter legs, so like I look completely different than these other people. And you know, when you watch me running, I remember after I ran the Moab one, you told me I could totally tell that that was you running in the distance, just
Yeah,
based on your like body mechanics.
dude, you were so far away, and I was like, "Oh, I think that's David coming." And the girls are like, "No," like they thought like I was just talking out of my butt. Like they're like, you can't see him like from
Yeah,
that far. You can't tell who anybody is." And I was like, I don't know. I could just tell by like the form kind of and like the body shape,
yeah,
moves different than
yeah. We
anything.
ran so much together that we know how the other person looks like coming from a distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like whenever I run, I don't look natural in that sense. I don't look effortless. Like guys at the highest levels, when I watch a running economy, their form, like Eliud Kipchoge, they look like a gazelle, just like
Like they're
kind of just
floating
like
on water.
yeah, just gliding. When I look at videos of me running, I look like I'm like finessing my way through time and space, like just
Yeah,
like
yeah. Well,
forcing it
that's the
through.
hybrid athlete. That's the hybrid athlete right there. It's
Yeah,
because we lift weights. We lift weights.
yeah, yeah. So
So it is what it is.
yeah,
That's cool,
so
dude.
yeah. So
Dude,
I don't necessarily think I was built for certain activities, but I just still want to see how far I can take things regardless,
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You've always like looked strong, I
Yeah.
guess is what I was saying, because even
Yeah.
in middle school, it's like that dude's ripped.
Dude, yeah, same to you. Like I remember when I came to Kramer, I came from Christian private school. So okay, so sixth grade, I was like a fuck up kid. I was getting suspended a bunch of times. So my parents decided, okay, we're gonna send him to military school or Christian private school. They settled on Calvary Chapel in Yorba Linda. So showing up to eighth grade, I was brand new. You know, I didn't go to seventh grade or sixth grade with everyone else. And I remember meeting you, and you were also someone that always knew as like a fit, like strong guy. I remember in like PE, we had the same PE like class time. I had like Mr. Lou, and I think you had that one. What was that one PE teacher, Mr. Groff, the super jacked one that was like older, that
Yeah,
you would
like
just
he had
bike
like
to
he had a
school.
stroke back in the day, so like kind of
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He like named each of his biceps. I forget, dude.
I feel like every school has that.
Yeah,
He was a
Does have it.
character of a man.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember he had like a younger girlfriend. He would bike to school every day. He was just, yeah. But you were in his class, I think. And I remember like during PE, you would do like push ups or sit ups or whatever, and you would clock out like a bunch. And I remember you used to do like the flagpole when you kind of like hold yourself sideways to like the
Dude,
test.
it sums you up, dude.
Dude,
That's Levi. Levi is the flagpole kid.
Dude, I think I think I'm sure when I was in seventh grade, that flagpole pose was like my profile picture on MySpace.
dude, it was on my face. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Dude,
same to you. That's
on
like
MySpace.
yeah, you were always an athlete. I remember from the day that I met you, I was known like it's like, oh, okay, like you should meet this guy Levi. He's also like you. And then after meeting him, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's an athlete.
that's so funny, dude. Yeah, and then so years after high school, because me and David were never like we knew each other, like right, we
Yeah,
would say what's up, like we were always cool throughout
yeah,
high school and stuff like that. But years after high school, it was like kind of right after I think I started running or maybe ran my first marathon or something like that. Um, was around the same time David started getting into running too, at least in a way, in like a long distance kind of way.
yeah,
Um, but we connected on social media or something like that and decided to get a run in together, right? At
yeah.
the track. And so we did that and we pretty much just became friends ever since.
Uh huh.
And we've ran like probably thousands of miles together.
Dude, I can't even count.
Yeah. We have honestly some like good times, good memories of like going out to different trails, like when we went to Laguna.
Yeah.
Was it mentally sensitive? That one trail.
Oh my
What was the
god.
name of the trail? Mentally sensitive.
Was it like hard or
Oh,
I was thinking,
it was the worst thing that we've ever done.
like
It
so
was
really hard.
brutal. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was either
Maybe
mentally
until
sensitive.
Moab. I think Moab was worse, but
Right.
up
Yeah.
until that point, this is like the worst trail that we've ever done. I was like, what the hell is going
Yeah,
on?
because for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned how, you kind of got in a headspace where it was like, how far can I push? How, how much can I do? Do you
Yeah.
feel like, and based on like the way that you grew up, do you feel like you're like as a competitor, do you feel like you're more competitive with yourself, or do you feel like you're competitive against other people? Like if you're in a race, right?
Mhm.
Or I think it was Nick Bear did like the last man standing.
Yeah, the backyard one.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
remember looking at his story, and his wife Stephanie was talking about him, and you want him to beat everybody just because you like Nick or whatever. And I remember her talking on there, and this is the only reason I asked because I never thought about this, but she said like, how much do you want to go, or do you want to beat these people? And she's like, I'm obviously always reminded, like he always reminds me that he doesn't actually care about the other people. He just wants to see how much he can do.
Mm.
Like he's super competitive against himself
Yeah.
rather than like the other people around him. Do you feel like you're more like competitive from a self standpoint, or do you really like to compete against other people? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to compete against other people, but there certainly is something to be said about people who can like fight their own mind for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure, like with myself, like I'm pretty competitive when it comes to certain things, but I'm very like supportive of other people. It's not necessarily like, oh, because like you're passing me up or whatever, I'm gonna be mad. I'm like, dude, kudos to you. Like I'm fucking dying here, so like, let's keep this going. So competing against other people, it motivates me because it makes me want to work harder to like get to their level. But I'm always like fighting within the battle in myself. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
What would you say you are?
Um,
Or which, not that you have to pick one, but like which one do you lean more toward?
I would say, yeah, that's actually a really interesting question. I would say, mm, I was always competitive against other people growing up because of soccer. Like it was always just the person next to you. Like I could take that guy's knees out right now. It had nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
Um, but running is just different. And I know we talk about a lot about running, but like I think running has made me realize that, and I think you guys have probably realized the same, that people who can run a long way or like try and do that, they're just really good at suffering.
Mhm.
Like you can just you can run, you hit a wall, it's like, can you move through the wall? That's like end of the story. Can you move through the wall? Can you keep moving through the wall? And I think that if you're
And that's in training.
yeah, it's in
That's not
training,
just
it's
the
race day,
competition,
it's
right?
every
But
single
yeah.
day. Yeah. I mean, if you're an Olympic athlete, obviously you don't want to go there and maybe you do just want to see how good you can do, but you're there for a purpose. You're there to win a medal, like gold. But I think for the most people who are kind of like outside of that college athletic phase, it's definitely like always and continually a battle against yourself. So I would say maybe in the past I was more me against someone else or me against whoever. But nowadays I think it's along the lines of what David was saying is you kind of have like a talk with yourself. It's like, I can either just kind of step aside or I can see what like I can accomplish. Like, cause it's you against you, you've got to sign up for the race. You kind of got to go like see what you can do. It's not really like you're fighting against anyone anymore. You're fighting against yourself.
Right.
Yeah. What about
Yeah.
you?
So it's definitely both. Um, I would say that I am definitely more. You're gonna get the best. I'm gonna get the best out of myself when I'm competing against somebody. Every time.
Let's transition this in because I know what you're about to say. We all were there. Let's talk about Moab.
Right. So this is why, and Moab was like a big realization to me for that. But it's honestly beyond Moab. Like because obviously Moab, crazy amounts of elevation, trail marathon. So nobody, I feel like it. What's the phrase that
Even
like,
the playing field?
yeah, evens the playing field. There we go. I feel like it kind of evens the playing field that way because when I go into a road marathon, I'm thinking pace, right? You're training to run a certain time, to sustain a certain pace. Like we did in Moab, you can't do that. Like there's no way you can do that, right? You kind of just compete and do your best. So with that in mind, I was just always trying to beat whoever was around me. And I think, and that not only did that like bring the best out of me, but I feel like it brought the most life out of me. Like it made me just enjoy it so much more. Um, Same thing, like even running, like it's like, it's not that I don't want others to do good. I want others to do their very best, to like push their absolute limits, because I want to compete with you. And that's going to bring me to the next level, you know, and that's how you kind of bring two people that, you know, build each other up and push each other to the next level. So even when I see people on Strava that I know, and they're posting, you know, their runs up on that, which is like a social media thing for runners, basically. I'm looking at those and I'm like, I'm not like angry by any means. It fires me up, but I'm like, all right, nice. This guy just got this in. You know, I see David just ran, you know, 9 miles at 10 p.m. last night, and like, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get mine in now. You know, like maybe not maybe right in the moment, but like that mindset kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I get that. I feel
almost like there's almost like I'm competing with David and he doesn't even know it, you know? I'm just using you as an example, but
Yeah.
you kind of get the point. So I love to see my own limits, and like I feel like you need that dancing partner, just like you do in that perfect dancing partner in like competition in sports. So I still go hand in hand with the two, but I think I get the most life out of what I'm doing when I'm competing with somebody. However, what you guys are saying, I don't disagree or like feel like I don't relate to that at all, because I totally do, as far as like pushing yourself to the limit.
I think I've told you, like, I would say kind of on the lines of David that I competed against myself on a regular basis. But in that sense, the second that I haven't competed in a while, like since soccer ended, pretty much. Dude, the second Moab race started,
Yeah.
I wanted to smoke everybody. So from that standpoint, I would say, yeah, I would be super competitive because it made me mad when people were passing me.
Right.
Now, the downside for me to what you're talking about is most of the people I know are way better at me than running.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I can't look at, well, there's two sides of this coin. So I can't look at what you post and say, oh man, Levi ran 14 miles at an 8:30 pace. Like, I'm not doing that. So I just need to be like, I need to keep running. You know, I have to see it from a different light of like, I just need to keep doing my thing and not come at it from like a comparison standpoint.
For sure. Yeah.
But
for sure.
From like a competitive standpoint, it does piss me off that I'm significantly behind everyone.
You got to be able to differentiate that comparison part.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was going to ask David. So just to fill everyone in, David had a race, Big Bear, which we'll talk about right after this, shortly after we all went to Moab to run the marathon last year. David, I want to know from your standpoint, it was interesting to know that you kind of chilled it on the run, because that's different from what me and you were talking about, where you start the race and you just want to smoke everyone. Yeah. Going into a race where you kind of have to take a step back and be like, I don't want to hurt myself because I got a big opportunity coming up. So David kind of had to take a step back and chill, and that would have been really hard for me.
Oh yeah, same.
So talk about that a little bit, David. Talk about like your Moab experience, because we haven't had the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so my birthday's November 15th, and November 18th, there's a marathon in Big Bear, and I've always had a goal of qualifying for Boston. And even since the first marathon that I ran, that was with Levi Long Beach, and I didn't make it. And there's a lot of excuses I could make or whatever, but I didn't make it happen. So
talk about that. Talk about that just a little bit, because me and you trained for Long Beach together.
Yeah,
and that was a big race for the both of us. That was your first marathon.
Yeah.
We were together at least half that race.
Yeah, until mile 13.
Was your goal to qualify for Boston with that race, David?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started long distance running probably like 2.5 months prior to Long Beach because of my buddy JJ. He started like saying like, okay, like I want to run this 10K. And I was like, okay, like I've always been the friend that's been in shape or whatever. And I was like, I'll run it with you. And, you know, we run this 10K and he ends up getting second place. I was like, God damn it, he beat me. Like, how did you do this? Yeah, he was fast. He's actually a really good natural runner. He just needs to work harder, like work smarter, and like he could set some good times. But I remember like feeling super fired up after that 10K, like, okay, like I want to run a marathon now. And Long Beach was like 2.5 months out, like later that summer. So we trained really hard for this marathon, and I had my goal of like qualifying for Boston. And maybe it was delusion or something, but I thought, okay, I can do this. But as we're getting ready for this race, I'm running pretty good times with Levi where we're maintaining like, doing like, let's say like a 17-mile run. We'll run the first 10 at like a chilled pace, like 8:30 a mile, and then drop down the hammer and do like 6:35 a mile for the last 7. So we were doing like some serious workouts like that. And I remember the morning of the marathon, my buddy Uriel, who also ran with us, he had like the energy block shoes, and he's like, "Hey, dude, like these are good for here. These are electrolytes. These are good for running. So like you should probably
He
take these."
did tell us about this.
Dude. And then I was just like, okay, like I've never taken any kind of supplement for running, like electrolytes or anything like that prior to this. So I remember in like mile 4 or 6 or whatever, I downed like the whole pack. Like I just like ate them because they're like little like candies almost. Like I just ate them. And I remember like talking to Levi like mile 10. I'm like, dude, Levi, I don't know what's going on, but like my body, my muscles are moving on their own. Like they feel so weird. And he didn't know what to really say. So we're just running. Mile 13 hits, dude, and my legs, all the muscles are moving like crazy, and like I'd like hit the floor, like I was on the ground, literally like on the floor, like what the fuck happened? And I was so surprised at like I guess the support and like love that the running community shows you. Like when they saw me on the ground, people on the sidelines are like, "Oh my god, like my son!" Like I didn't know these people. They were like trying to give me water, trying to give me electrolytes, whatever it was. So I basically got up and would hobble and fall, got up, hobble and would fall. And I try to stretch my body out and then just try to keep going. So I like kind of jogged the last half. But because I ran the first half fast enough, I finished with like a 3:26. And I was so disappointed after this race. And I researched online, like, why did that happen? So I guess if you take in that much sodium and electrolytes without water in one sitting, it's gonna pull all the water from your body to try to dilute what's in your stomach. So like I should have never eaten that whole pack of the block shoes. And so that was like a super dumb decision on my part. Um, so this upcoming, well, previous marathon now, um, I knew better on how to like train, but also on how to like hydrate, how to like do things properly so I don't do that same mistake again. And Levi hit me up. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this marathon in Moab. You should come out and do it with us." And I was like, "Okay." Like, it's 2 weeks out before the marathon that I'm planning on trying to qualify for Boston, but let me just use it as a training marathon. So when I met up with you guys, I had a mindset like I'm gonna take it easy. I'm gonna chill kind of throughout this process to not overexert myself because 2 weeks after that, I have this second marathon to do. So it was definitely a weird kind of experience because I've never ran a race where I just like cruised and like stop at the aid station and like just look around and like I even had a beer at one of the aid stations. So it was a much different experience instead of like competing like I normally would.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I want to like one really cool point that you mentioned, which so well, two things. I had never run a race before. So Moab was my
Yeah.
first like actual marathon. I've run, marathon distances before, but I had never run that actual distance. And
Yeah.
to touch on two of the things you said, there was one point in the race, like we've talked about it, I think on our first podcast, but like my Achilles gave out, right? So I was constantly using my like left leg to like do all the hop downs. And at one point, like I just couldn't use my left leg anymore. And those big hop downs would make everything like squeeze up. And I remember falling on the ground one time. I had like 5 people stop their race and be like, "What do you need? Do you need salt tablets? Do you need this?" And so
Amazing.
I think like one huge thing that I think there's so many people out there that have no idea. Anytime you tell them you run, like, "Oh, I ran 8 miles today," and they're like, "What is wrong with you?" Like they just don't understand.
Yeah.
I kind of now that I've run the race, I'm a bit more drawn into what it offers. Like the community is amazing. Like
Oh yeah.
the people there could be in so much pain and still be cheerful, excited. Like I think people don't understand that it can be an experience unless of it's not you're not going to run. You're going to run 26, but it's also like you're getting an incredible experience with it. You're getting to meet a bunch of people. You're all there for the same reason. And I think that part
Yeah.
is very what would you call it, like overlooked when it comes to races. So I think that's really cool. And then on the other point, I was gonna say I've done that before too. And dude, Is that not like the worst? It's not a good feeling. It's
Wait,
not.
when you're saying you took like a bunch of like electrolytes without water?
Well, I did it, but like in the powder form. So
Yeah.
it's like my powder to liquid ratio was off, and I was like, "Oh, I've got a bottle. I
Yeah.
can just pack it with."
When did you do this?
This was like a year ago.
Wait, was this when you passed out in the grocery store? Or
Do you
almost?
want me to talk about that?
Dude, please.
Okay,
you gotta
so-
hear this, David.
So, this was like beginning of my running journey, like my trail running journey. I had kind of gotten my mileage up to about 10 miles.
Oh.
And I was looking for just an ass kicker of a trail. This was also the trail I saw the bear. So it was like the worst morning ever. And there's a hike in Denver called Bear Peak. It's a pretty hard run. I would say it's I was aiming for about 8.5 miles. In the end, I ended up running like 14 miles because I got lost and I saw a bear like 5 feet in front of me. So it was just like the worst day ever. Like it was terrible. But basically I had like such an ego going into it, and I didn't know that anything about like nutrition and everything like that. So I asked my sister, I was like, "Hey, give me a trail to run, or do you know any trails?" She was like, "I've tried to hike this twice and I failed both times." My ego going into it, I was like, "I'm gonna run that bitch." I'm gonna run it. So, and it's a hike. It's like so much incline.
Yeah.
So I get lost because All Trails sends me like 8 different ways. I don't trust All Trails at all anymore. I finally get to the peak, and I'm so angry that I don't even like go up to the top of the peak. I just go below it and I just turn around and go backwards. It was also like way like a longer time frame that I had been running than I should have been. So I had like 3 miles left to get back to the car. And at this point, David, I'm not a good runner. I mean, I'm literally like falling apart. I got no liquids left.
Yep.
I have no goos left. I have nothing. I'm like 3 miles away from the car. And each of my steps, I'm kind of like losing control of my feet and my legs. And it doesn't matter if I'm stretching or not. I just can't control my legs. And I finally get back to the car. I've got no water in my car. Another rookie mistake, because I didn't bring like a bottle for when I'm done with my race. And it's in, I don't know if it starts in like the Flatirons, like Boulder area. I can't remember. But it's like Saturday morning at 8 o'clock is when I finished the run. So I had finished that many miles because I got out there at like 4 a.m. And I go to this grocery store at 8 a.m. in the morning, and just no one's there. There's like no one there. And I walk in and I'm like a zombie. Like I can barely move my legs. And the first thing I see in the grocery store is like a little container of pineapple and like the Kroger brand Pedialyte. And so I just grab it, and the self-checkout's like 10 yards away from where I am. Like entrance, first things I see, self-checkout. And by the time I get to the self-checkout, it was like lights out. And so there's just me on the floor with a pineapple in my hand at a self-checkout. And this small Asian woman comes up to me, and she can't speak very good English. And she just goes, "I called 911." And I was like, no, it was like when I kind of like came back to life. I was like, you just need to let me sit here. So I ended up sitting on the floor of a self-checkout in Safeway for like 5 minutes, and no one else was there. So this Asian woman was just like standing in self-checkout like this, just staring at me for 5 minutes, and I just couldn't move. So I just sat there and I just ate pineapple like on the floor. And then she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I should go now." And so I just got up and I left. But that was just like something. It was so dumb. I don't know. I didn't know. That was just a good example of like I wanted to go all out, but I didn't know like nutrition. I certainly didn't know like how much I should be drinking for like my weight and all that stuff.
Mm.
But I realized that when you aren't as good of a runner, you're also not as efficient as the good runner. So I feel like you have to like use more and you need more than other people. So like my 8 miles looks very different from your 8 miles. Like you run 8 miles with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you put me on a hard trail, I'm probably going to need a little more than you do until I get like super efficient and I can keep my heart rate down, etc.
Yeah.
So,
and you're a bigger dude.
I'm taller. I'm not bigger. But yeah, that was a time that I made up my mind right there. I was like, I need to start reading things, figure out like what you're actually supposed to do. Cause I just brought whatever. And then I ended up running out of it. 3/4 into the run. So I feel that, David. I feel that. It wasn't in a race, so luckily I got back in my car. But
Yeah. Yeah, there's a science to running and proper hydration, nutrition, and all that. And sometimes you could get too caught up in that and forgetting to just run. But yeah, you can't just like pull through everything. You got to be smart with things.
yeah, 100%. I think me and Levi had actually talked about you. It was after we saw your results at Big Bear, which we'll talk about in a second. But I just want to add on to what you just said. Was you made a really good point how you can get caught up all in it and forget to just run.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, I don't think you wanted to use heart rate stuff to get from A to B.
Mhm.
And I do think that, and you can touch on that because you certainly followed kind of that path to get where you are. You can, if you want to touch on that when we talk about Big Bear, but I think you can still enjoy it and kind of like if you want to get to a certain level, do the zone work, stay in your heart rate zones. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that, David.
Yeah, I mean, the way I train is based on heart rate zone. So like, whenever you see like my runs on Strava, it'll generally like read average heart rate of like 150 or something like that. Cause I'm trying to keep it for me like zone 2, like green zone training. So I'm not like, there is a danger of like looking at your watch too much like constantly throughout your run where you're just
Sorry,
constantly.
David.
What?
Andrew's wiener dog right now.
What's he doing?
It's going to ape shit.
What is he doing?
I wish you could turn the camera. She's got a bed that's like 8 times the size of her, and she's just throwing it around the room.
Babe, just take her bed.
Drag her. She's eating the... Sorry, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, you told her to go to bed, so maybe she's trying to be like, technically my bed's over here, so
She's just dragging her across the room. Anytime something stupid happens, David, we got told like after the first episode that we had no personality. So anytime something happens that's funny, we gotta actually like let it happen. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's all good. Fuck, where was I?
You were talking about how you use zone work, but you want to talk about that after Big Bear?
Yeah, I want to hear about Big Bear because me and you haven't really talked about it.
Yeah,
you ran an incredible time at Big Bear. What, Revel Marathon?
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
Big Bear.
How'd you do, David?
Yeah,
tell us like your final results.
How'd you do?
Pace.
Oh yeah, how'd you do?
Yeah, it was I got like a 2 hours 46 minutes and I forget the seconds, but like a 2:46 basically. And
Nice.
I felt good about it. Going into it, I was a little nervous. Even like when I was talking to Levi before the race, he said, "How you feel?" I was like, "Dude, I'm a little nervous because Moab really fucked me up." That was, dude, my joints, like my fucking knees, like they were hurting, dude. So I was like leading up to this marathon 2 weeks out, like knowing that like, my body's a little destroyed and I got to do this second marathon and not just a marathon, but qualify for Boston. So it was kind of like looming on me.
What's the time that you have to have for Boston, David?
So it's based on your gender and your age group. So I think for us, it changes after 35 years old or maybe 40. But there's like age group categories and gender categories. So for men and women, it's different. And now they have a binary category too, which, that some other opinions that I got on that. But basically, you have to run. For men under 35, you have to run sub 3 hours. So what?
He's telling me that I'm in the third category.
Oh my god.
Dude, let the man speak.
My bad, dude.
Yeah, so basically you got to run sub 3 hours, but because there's enough people who can hit the qualifying time, they can't accept everyone. So that means you have to get even under that. And how much under is decided every year depending on how many applicants and how many people get under 3 hours. So last year for Boston, it was 7 minutes under. You actually had to run a 2:53 or faster in order to get into Boston. So a 2:53 average pace comes out to like 6:39 a mile. And like I've never done that before. Like I haven't like done a Boston qualifying race before. I've never ran a sub 3 hour marathon before. So going into this, I was a little worried.
Did you have a personal goal for pace? Although even though you hadn't done it, did you have like a goal in your mind that you wanted to hit?
I just kind of wanted to like try to average like a 6:35. Like when I would look at my watch and I was like looking, I'm like, okay, I need to go run faster, slower. I was basing that off of like a 6:35 pace. Yeah. I ended up doing 7 minutes under the 7 minutes under. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I definitely didn't plan running it that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also bought like brand new shoes. It was a horrible idea. And I ran 2 miles in it the day before as like a little break in. And I was like, these are pretty broken and I'm good. So when I started this race, my left toe was numb from mile one. In a race, you can't just stop and untie your shoe and like look at your foot or whatever. So I was like, check, I'm gonna just focus on this race and deal with that later. Um, and keep in mind too, like this race, it sucked because you have to meet up somewhere in Loma Linda area, which is kind of near Big Bear, to take a shuttle at 3:30 in the morning. You have to meet up there, so you basically don't sleep. You wake up at like 2:30, whatever, head out to Loma Linda, get on the shuttle, takes you to the top of this like Big Bear area at like 5 a.m. You're waiting in the cold. Just they give you like a space blanket or whatever, but like you're just there, just waiting for a whole hour. They had no food for you at the top of this thing. They didn't even have coffee. It was just water or electrolyte mixed water. I was like, I thought it was a well-run race in terms of like the logistics of shuttling people or whatever, but they could have like provided a few more things like at the start of this race. So like,
Coffee is a great shout. Like to give runners coffee before you run, that's like the best thing you could do.
yeah, so
I
it's like,
appreciated that at Moab.
yeah, so it's like you're not sleeping, you're not eating. Luckily, I like wolfed down like a granola bar before I left the door, but like that's all I really had. So like these mental things start like fucking with you before the start of the race. Like, oh man, like because ideally you would want like things to be perfect before you start your race, right? Like, okay, you got good night's rest, you ate well, like your shoes aren't making your toe numb, like all these things. And once I started running the race, I like kind of tried to forget about all of these things and just push through. At a certain mile, it was like 11 or something maybe. I really had to take a shit. So like I had to hop into like a porta potty and like just power through and then hop back out. So at the end of the race when I was done, like I actually averaged like a 6:16 per mile if I didn't, stop to use the restroom for I guess that time frame.
Yeah, that's why I'd mentioned the coffee. I was like, that's not that I
Yeah.
need coffee at 5, like like that, but to do that to all the runners before, that's definitely saved some time on some people's marks.
Yeah, jeez. So congrats, dude. That's
Yeah, congrats.
huge.
Thank you, bro.
How did you? I'm curious. How did you train for this marathon specifically? Right, because it's a downhill marathon.
Mhm.
And so, how did you train for that? And what kind of impact did the elevation drop like have on you, if it had any?
So like when I was reading up on this marathon, people were talking about like downhill marathons are better for
Because
your
sorry,
pace.
not to cut you off, but there's also because Revel is like they have like multiple marathons. Like they have a Revel in the Rockies one
It's
here
like a
in
series kind
Colorado.
of thing.
It's
Yeah.
maybe a series kind of because they have one in the Rockies that starts, I don't know, somewhere up in the Rockies and ends at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a few more in other places that maybe David knows, but
David,
sorry.
David, when you talk about this too, could you compare how the downhill in Big Bear felt compared to your experience of the downhill in Moab?
Yeah. I mean, this was a road marathon, so completely different. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to Moab, like there's so much technical terrain. Like you can't just cruise. You constantly have to be looking at the ground and trying to see where you're going to step. Road marathons, you can kind of close your eyes even and just push through that pain. You know what I mean? So it's easier to maintain a certain pace because the terrain is not technical. Yeah, there's turns, but it's all on like the road, like the asphalt and leading to the town. So it's primarily downhill, like from start until like the last maybe like 3 or 4 miles, it was pretty flat. Um, but when I was reading up on downhill marathons, it says that it can help your pace, but it's harder on your joints. So some people aren't used to that. So you can imagine like the pounding that your body will take over the course of a marathon running downhill. Some people like blow out their knees or like they can't run anymore after a certain point because their ankles hurt too much or whatever it is. Luckily, I'm not like a heavy guy. Like I'm like 140, something pounds. So maybe that's in my favor. But when I was reading about this race and the downhill aspect, I honestly didn't think to train any different. Maybe I should have, and I would have done better, but I just was doing what's convenient for me. Like I have a busy schedule because I work, but I'm also in grad school. So I would just run on the river trail by my house, which is pretty flat for the most part. Um, and yeah, I've never ran that type of distance at a downhill angle before. You start out at like maybe like 8,500 feet elevation. So the air is pretty thin when you start too. So that was like another factor you got to think about. I didn't honestly feel too much of a difference, and I usually don't when I go to high elevation places. Maybe it's because I don't run in that elevation long enough, or maybe I don't know what it is, but I didn't really feel too much of a difference there. But I did feel like my joints starting to hurt like towards the middle of the marathon where like, dang, like I'm still like having this constant trying to stop yourself from propelling forward and eating shit on the asphalt kind of feeling. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think I had talked to you about that. That's what I was curious about because
Yeah.
Moab, I had trained a lot uphill, so Moab, like the uphills were good, but the part that crushed me was the downhill. Like
Yeah.
my knees just
Dude, me too.
killed me on the downhill.
Well, dude, it takes a freaking toll on you because I feel like the beginning of the race, we're hauling tons of downhill, tons of jumping down. And then it's not like that you take that all the way to the end of the race, because the end of the race, you're going up incline, so it's like you're constantly just nailing your feet on the freaking dirt, and then you got to go run up a hill
Yeah.
100 yards later. And you know what I mean? So like you have to use those muscles that are just like constantly taking a beating.
Yeah.
And now you need to use them to get you up this ginormous incline.
David, let me ask you this because
Mhm.
this was another point me and Levi had discussed in our first pod, which we kind of went through our experience in Moab. But
Yeah.
me personally, on the downhill, I felt like, and it was just kind of tagging on what you had just said. I don't use them to my advantage as much. So if you were to like lean into a downhill, you might be able to keep, or you could just, not might, you can, I would assume, keep that same running form because you're leaning into the downhill. I felt like I was more or less like leaning back and trying to like slow myself down on the downhill. So like I went from my normal run form where you're landing like midfoot, whatever, to just heel striking again, where everything is going like shin hip, and I was like
Yeah.
not running the way that I should be. Instead, I was trying to slow myself down. Do you
Yeah.
feel like at Big Bear you kind of, also because you had to keep your pace, that you instead kind of leaned into it a little bit to try and keep that normal run form? Because I think what you're saying is
Yeah.
like I would do terrible at Big Bear because
Yeah.
I
I
would
mean,
try and slow down.
there's different levels of decline throughout the race, and I feel like there's like a sweet spot where like a certain level of decline that is good for your pace, but it's not too much. But there was definitely times where it was like too much, and I feel like I'm falling forward. So like my gait is completely different. I'm just trying to not eat shit like going down, and I was like, damn, I wish I can like just like push faster here, but if I do, there's this danger of me falling forward. So yeah, it's like a weird game, and I didn't really train that leading up to it at all. So it was learning on the fly, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm stoked. So you're planning on coming up here for the part of my segment that
Yeah.
we were talking about before the pod. Andrew also is open to that, or he wants to.
Hell yeah.
So I'm thinking on that sixth segment, it'll be the three of us.
Sick. Yeah, like
So
tell me how you're like what's your plan on that? How are you breaking it up? Because when you told me you're doing 171 miles, and if I divide that by 7, it comes out to like 24 and a half miles per day, but you're trying to break it up into only 6. Like what's your plan on, I guess?
no, it's 7 days.
Okay. So
171 miles, 7 days. I'm sleeping in a camper.
okay.
So I have a crew. I have a 2-person road crew, and I will be sleeping in a camper. So I believe I'll be up and running at 6 a.m.
Mhm.
at the beginning of each day. I'll get however many miles in that I'm supposed to that day, which I think it comes out to like 25 or something like that.
Mhm.
And then recover do it over again the next day. Starting in Steamboat Springs, which is that's up there. So it's gonna be a ton of elevation gain. And then it's gonna end here in Sloan's Lake, in Denver. So so 7 days it's broken up into. Got the road crew. I have like a coach, a running coach, training schedule, all that. 16-week block that actually starts in a couple weeks. Maybe less.
So if I'm running and then we're gonna run, what segment numbers is that? So if Steamboat to 24 miles is segment 1.
So let me break this down. We got a 3,280 mile relay across America, divided between 21 runners. Okay. So my segment, Steamboat to Denver, is segment number 8 of the 21 segments. Okay. My segment is broken down into 171 miles in 7 days. So I'm running, I believe, 25 and a half miles a day for 7 days straight. So you guys will be with me on day 6.
Okay.
Cool.
Capiche?
And then after that, would that be your final into Sloan's Lake?
Yeah. My final day into Sloan's Lake, I'm keeping reserved for my brother.
Sick.
Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah.
Sick.
I haven't told him yet, but
wait, did he just hurt his back?
Yeah.
Is that the brother?
That's why I haven't asked him yet.
Yeah, I haven't told him.
I don't want to stress him out or anything, but if he's able to, hopefully, I mean,
that'd be sick.
praying God willing that he's healthy by then and wants to train for that and do, finish that up with me. That'd be cool. So
that'd be awesome.
Awesome,
yeah.
dude.
Is it cool if I do my plug really quick?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So MS Run the US relay. So I'm running, like I just said, 171 miles in 7 days. And my goal for this is to raise $10,000 that's going straight to multiple sclerosis. My dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2010, and it's had a ginormous impact on myself and my family. And so this $10,000 that I'm going to be trying to fund is going straight to people that are in need of things, like direct support for MS, people with MS, people that need something like a stair chair, for example, is something that my dad had to use for a long time when we lived in a 2-story home. And it's like a stair that, or a chair that takes you down the stairs, up the stairs. That way, because people with MS, a lot of times they can't walk. So for an example, the money has gone to a direct family that is in need of one of those. And other parts of the money is going to go straight for like research, people, doctors that have dedicated their lives to research and putting an end to MS one day with that goal. And on the website, you can find all this information. If anybody, if it's on your heart to donate and help me reach my goal, you can go to the link on my Instagram profile. You can go to the link on this podcast Instagram profile, and you'll find a little more of my story there. Like I said, my dad was diagnosed, so I'm running it in honor of him. Me and my family are, super excited that I got chosen to do this in May of this year. So I'm super excited to kick that off.
Yeah, and if anyone can't find any of the links or anything like that, just shoot us a note on Instagram at the Bad Company Instagram, and we'll get you sorted out and send you the link.
Sweet. What else we got?
I think we had talked about it, David. We can end on these topics. I think me and Levi wanted to hear a little bit about kind of what your values are. It seems like you're a very disciplined and focused person when it comes to areas of your life. I know you were in the military, but also when it comes to running, you've got a really good head on your shoulders. So I know Levi knows you a lot more than I do. For those of you who don't know, me and David actually met in Moab for the first time. So David, if you could tell me a little bit about kind of what values you hold really strong for yourself, and then kind of what values you find are really important for other people to have as well.
I think for like myself, I had this experience maybe like a year and some change ago where I really like found out about the purpose of my life. Like, why am I here? Like, I had these questions about like my existence. Maybe it's like an existential crisis, just like kind of not knowing like what your life is about. You know what I mean? Like that can tie into spiritualism, it can tie into religion, it can tie into a lot of things, but at its core, it's like, why are you on this earth? Like, what is your purpose during your lifetime? And what I broke it down to is basically four tenets of my life. Like, my life is to protect, to provide, to heal, and to love. Those four things you can break it down into. So I told you, like, I grew up, you know, trying to protect myself. It basically was about survival. And as I grew older, I thought less about myself and more about protecting others. And that's, something anyone can do. It's not just a physical thing, but speaking up for others, speaking up for injustices, things like that. Um, and to be able to provide, so providing, like, I thought about it, when I was younger, as in like, okay, I need to like go to school, get a good job, learn how to make some money so I can like help provide for myself and my future. I can help provide, let's say, for a future family and things like that. But when you look more into it, providing doesn't necessarily have to be financial. Providing can be advice. Providing can be a service unto others. Providing is just basically be of use to yourself and to society. Like, be a beacon of light into other people's lives. Provide in some way, shape, or form, right? um to heal. So like, I'm a nurse. That's my background. I'm an ICU travel nurse now, kind of part-time, while I'm in school, to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Like, I guess you can think of nursing as like a job of healing in a sense. But even healing, like, you don't need to be a professional. You don't have to have a degree for that. Healing can be just like, you are the friend that someone can rely on when everything else in their life goes to shit. You are the person that they can come to and you will listen to them without judgment. Like, you are there for them. So healing can be in many ways, shapes, or form. And above all, just to like spread love onto others. I think that's what life is really about. It sounds cheesy, and like, I didn't used to always think like this when I was younger, but I think like when I meet people in my life and they show me like an overwhelming amount of love or grace or like things that I don't necessarily feel like I deserved, I remember those instances. I remember those interactions and those people, how they impacted my life, even as small as it may seem. Like, it really meant something and maybe changed the outcourse of my life. I want to be able to do that and provide those type of experiences or interactions with people where, like, because they've known me, because I was in their life, it changed their life for the better, I guess. So, like what I said, like a year and a half ago, when I had these thoughts, I broke it down to those four things: to protect, to provide, to heal, and to love. So that's why I believe I'm on this earth, what I'm placed here for. Um, when I look at other people, I try not to be judgmental in terms of like what their values are, but there are certain types of people that I feel like I'm drawn to, definitely. People who try to challenge themselves, people who try to like better themselves in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it comes in the form of athletics, like you guys who, commit to running these damn miles, like competing and putting yourself out there. Like, it's a lonely journey. People only see the results when we run these races, but they don't see all the miles that we do on Saturday mornings by ourselves. When you're struggling, you're already tired, and you get up in the morning and you still choose to run anyway. Those are very lonely times where you start to really find out about who you are and what you're made of. And the race is just, the end result that people can see, but they don't see everything else. So I feel like I'm attracted to values within people where they're constantly trying to improve upon themselves in some way, shape, or form. And I think authenticity, like being genuine, like there's people that I've met, in my lifetime, and they could even be like really nice to me, but sometimes I felt like there was some sort of motive or some sort of like ulterior planning there. They're nice to me because I'm friends with this person that they like and they want to get closer to, or like whatever it is, you can kind of tell when someone's being genuine or authentic with you. When I meet people that are 100% true and honest about who they are and they show that to you, like, I'm drawn toward that. So I guess for me, the two qualities I love to see within people is like genuineness and like trying to improve upon yourself in all aspects of your life.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's good stuff, dude. We are attracted to the same values, and
Yeah.
that's a big part of why we wanted you to be our first guest on the podcast. I'm looking forward to having you on the podcast more, and yeah, I think we're ready to wrap it up. David, I think, man, I'm so happy to have such a good friendship with you. You've helped me out a lot. Those values that you're talking about, I've witnessed and been a part of, and I love you, man. I think you're a great friend, and I'm looking forward to, so much more, and just kind of getting better together. You got anything else to?
I'd love to do this podcast at the end of the year, because I feel like we all have got some things on the agenda for this year. This would be a great follow up. But yeah, I appreciate it, David. It was really good to meet you. I know I don't have regular communication with you like Levi does, but it was really great to meet you at Moab. Thanks for coming on. And I look forward to seeing your progress this year, man.
Yeah. I mean, thank you guys both for having me. I enjoyed this experience, and it was great to meet you too. Like, it's cool when like a good friend of mine tells me like, hey, this is my friend and they're awesome. Like, I automatically know like, hey, this person finds qualities within yourself that they find to be of like, you're a great person. They want to be good friends with you. Like, I'm already going to know that you're a great person. You get what I'm saying? So like, to have met you in Moab and that would be your first race, it's like, okay, this guy got that dog in him, and I really like that. And yeah, Levi, I thank you so much for all the years that we've like trained together, like all those times that we were just running side by side for so many miles and suffering, like just talking about life. Like, those times helped me out a lot, and it brought a lot of clarity into my life. So I love you too, and I hope you guys are going to kill it in whatever you do soon. I'll be coming to Denver to help you with that race.
Yeah,
I'll
let's
probably
do
see you
it.
then
Yeah,
too, Andrew. What's that?
yeah.
We'll do a on the road podcast.
That's gonna be sweet, dude. And then we still got that deal. Whenever I come and visit home, we're running a half marathon every
Oh,
time.
every time.
That's what we started last time I went home, we met up and we we just ran a half marathon
That's actually sick, dude.
in the trails, and we're like, you know what? How about we make a pact? Every single time I visit home, half marathon.
Yeah, next time we could hit up mentally sensitive.
I appreciate that. Hey,
Dude.
Paul, if you're watching this, next time I come home, we're running a half marathon.
There you
Every
go.
time I go
Hey,
home.
dude, you gotta come to California, and we'll do mentally sensitive. We'll go back, dude.
It's weird that's in California.
Yeah.
Like that, it was like so challenging.
Oh, it was in like it was in Laguna, and there's like or I think Aliso, but tons of trails there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
sweet, dude. We'll have to try it.
Yeah, people would be surprised. We got some trails in California. I know it doesn't necessarily sound like it, but it's not all beaches and flat.
We'll give it a try.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, David. I really appreciate it, man. I hope you have a good night.
All right, fellas. I'll talk to you soon.
all right, brother, take it easy.